I am Minister Buquilla Ervin Canon, and you're watching In the Flow.
Hello, my name is Monisha Epps, and I am the owner of Daily Living Adult Daycare Facility. The facility is about getting seniors out of being home and just being stuck at home all day. So it's a place for them to come and interact with peers of themselves. We take anyone from the ages of 18 and older, and we also take someone who has Alzheimer's, dementia, and they don't actually have to have a mental or health issue. They still can come to the facility. At the facility, we assist them with activities of daily living. That includes things like bingo, arts and craft, painting, different things that we can do that can keep them busy. We have 2 locations. We have one in King Street and we have one in Florence, which is one of our newer locations. We are located on 500 Pamlico Highway, Suite G, and my contact number is 843-206-9042, or you can contact me via email at dailylivingllc@yahoo.com. And we'll be here to take care of your loved ones during the day while you're away.
Hello, I'm Reverend Terry Alexander, asking you to join me every morning at 7 o'clock a.m. with Prayer Time with Terry. God is always willing to give, but we are so slow to ask. We must be intentional in our asking of God. Again, join me every morning at 7 o'clock a.m. with Prayer Time with Terry. Start your day with prayer.
Are you in search of residential or commercial services like cleaning, moving, landscaping? Book us at we'realldone.com or dial 843-206-7550.
Hi, I'm Tonya Morman. You are watching In the Flow. I am here with Buquilla Ervin Canon, a community gem. That's what I call her, and you're about to find out more. Miss Buquilla, I am so happy to be here with you.
Tonya, I am honored to be in your presence.
Listen, the honor is all mine. Don't even try to make me sound like I am that special, because you are the gem. But I want people to, I just want to get right in, because I want everyone to know why I know you're very special, why I call you our community gem. Tell us where you're from, first of all, and tell us what it was like growing up where you're from. Give me just a little bit there.
I am originally from Florence, South Carolina. I am a descendant of North Florence. My father was Willie P. Ervin Sr. My mother was Etta Margaret Wingate Ervin. My father was the first African-American licensed master plumber in this city, even though he worked across the state, but he was licensed in this city. And my mother worked as a nurse at McLeod for almost 40 years. And so they are what we call the community parents. And I just love the North Florence area, even though I love the entire Florence, but I love North Florence.
Well, what was it like growing up? Like when you were younger, what was it like growing up in this area?
Growing up, we had segregated areas in North Florence, but we had the neighborhood moms and dads that would take care and would share the stories and would talk to us about where they came from so that we can know about the history of North Florence. We had, gentrification, where it was always the section off. And when you crossed the railroad track, then you would be in the downtown area where all the Caucasian businesses were, what they now call downtown Florence. But we had the proud heritage of North Florence of having the African American business district.
Right.
Everybody from across these cities would come to North Florence to see their doctor, to see their dentist, their midwife, their accountants, their lawyers, their funeral homes. They had Motor Rooster, the legendary disc jockey. We had photo shops. We had people like Reverend O.E. Jackson and all those that make up that area, Andrews Laundromat, and Miss Ola, the midwife.
Wow.
All of that. Miss Estelle, the midwife. All of that was North Florence.
Right.
We had the first colored library, the only colored library that is now the police substation on Hampton Street. That's where we went to read, and that's where our teachers would meet us there because they lived across the street in those houses as Dr. Anderson owned, George Anderson, who was the principal when I was a child of Wilson Senior High School. His wife, Gusella Anderson, taught. But they had all of the homes where the teachers would come from across the state to teach at Wilson. But they lived on Hampton Street in those houses.
Right.
And on Irby Street, too.
So talk about school and schooling during that particular time.
I am a product of North Vista Elementary School, Wilson Junior High, and Williams Middle School, and finally graduating from Wilson High School. It was segregated. The books and everything that we got were books that they didn't want anymore. They got the new books, we got the old books. And when the books would come over in boxes, they would have such racial slurs in it. But our teachers and our principals would encourage us to know this is not you. This is what they want you to be.
You know what?
But this is not you.
You said something that I absolutely never thought about, because I knew that in those times that, you know, we were getting the books that were old, but I never thought about what they probably wrote in them. I never imagined that racial slurs were written in the school books. I can't even begin to imagine what that felt like.
It was so derogatory. Even the books that the main library would send to this one, and they knew that the books had those racial slurs in it. But we didn't get the new books at the colored library on Hampton Street.
Right.
We got the books sent to us from that library. When they had finished with them, then they would pack them up in boxes.
I only recently found out that we actually had a black library. I had no idea that we had one in our community. So
it was the colored library, and no, they didn't want it. But the carpentry from next door, Wilson Junior High School, those students built that library. It was not built by the school. It was not built by the city. It was, they took classes and they worked on that library. Mr. Brown from Darlington, the brick masonry, and all of them put that library together. Students and their instructors.
So why is it that you think now that, like, all of the courses, all of the vocational courses have been taken out of the schools, the arts, the masonries, the auto mechanics? I even hear now that they're taking away home economics. What are your thoughts on that?
I am just totally off in what they're trying to do. But again, it's part of red zoning us. They think that those type of courses are not necessary in this day and time. But everybody is not college material. Everybody don't want to go to a 4-year institution, or they want a trade so that they can help their families now. So auto mechanics, how many are riding cars because you took auto mechanics?
Right. And I gotta say, even beyond saying that everybody's not college material, number one, we need mechanics. We need electricians. We need plumbers. And these are actual not only just trades, but they become businesses.
They
Because
become big businesses.
Right.
And when I say that they're not cafeteria, what I mean by that is they've already made a choice for their career.
no, I understand what you're saying. I just kind of wanted people to
To
understand.
emphasize that
I
as
wanted-
well.
Absolutely.
Karma, I mean, where would we be, or where would I be, if it had not been for car mechanics that would come and would get me off the side of the road going to Morris College? You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And where would I be if it wasn't for a plumber like my father who went in and out these houses doing the work, and sometimes they would not even have the money. And they would say, Mr. Willie, can we pay you the first of the month? Or he would say, just pay me when you get it.
Right.
That was the kind of love that was shown in North Florence. Dr. Beck, you could go there at 8 o'clock. You'll be there probably 11 o'clock. You have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They'll bring you snacks and everything. People will be, the office would be so packed. There would be people, I remember as a child, standing outside the door,
Right.
waiting to get in. And then we were blessed to have a black dentist, Dr. George Williams.
This is history you're giving everybody.
Dr. George Williams, right across the street. And then, Dr. Garrett Mays, after he got out of service, he came and set up his doctor's office. And I look back and I say, this is ours. This is our history. And then when you cross that first railroad track, you had African American businesses like Freddie Hines, Sarah's Shop. You had the shoe stores. You had the grocery stores. You had Billy Williams, the upholstery that served on the city council all those years. But when I was doing the research, they never owned the businesses. They just rented the buildings.
Right.
And when they would try to purchase the business, they would tell them, no, you'll never own my building. And I did an interview with Billy Williams, whose parents had a building, his mom. And when they went to pay the rent, he would say, put it on the counter. Did not want to touch.
Wow.
And that was just the same story I heard when I was doing research and we were interviewing families. And they would talk about in North Florence, and this was all over, that they would have you sign.
You know, we understand that we were living in times then very segregated. And where we are today, I don't know what your thought is, but let me just ask you, what do you think some of the biggest differences between back then and today are with businesses and minority and black businesses here in our area?
If you look and you're real honest with yourself and you take a close inventory, I have seen African American businesses that gave their life savings to set up restaurants in this area, and the business went under and they lost everything that they had because there were promises made that we will support you, we will make sure that we send businesses your way, and they sacrificed so much and then lose everything. Now we do see that there are African American businesses downtown, and we frequent them and we enjoy what is going on downtown with their businesses. But to be honest, where are we as far as real estate ownership? Where are we? Will we ever own those businesses, or will we continue to lease them?
When you're talking about owning the businesses, you're actually talking about owning the buildings, the actual
building itself.
real estate. Because the businesses are their businesses. I imagine that they are licensed and business, but they're leasing their space.
They're leasing for, X amount of years, maybe 5 years, and then the lease is up for renewalship.
Well, how important is it for them to own the building? And I know this answer, but I want to hear this from you, because as we trace back, you were telling me that even back then they weren't allowed to own the buildings. They were telling you will never own the buildings. And so now in 2020, and we're still not owning the buildings. Why is that?
Because of the fact that we are still in that zone where we can never have complete ownership. They will give us a piece of the pie, but not the whole pie. And they will allow us to have a seat at the table, but usually decisions are already made before you even at the table. So there are a few businesses that are owned, that they own the building, the mechanics definitely, and I just applaud them every day for that. But I look at the future of downtown Florence, and I'm saying to us, we don't need to just to have a seat at the table, folks. We need to have our own table.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We need to have our own table. And even now, when I was looking back on rental property back in the 60s here, they were owned by 4 prominent families here that still are here. And they actually embezzled, that's what I call it, because they had families to sign contracts that they would own their homes. They would own their homes, and I had relatives that were a party to that as well. They paid the so-called mortgage every month to the owner, to the landowner. But when they finished paying for the house, then they would tell them, the house is yours, but the land belongs to me.
Wow.
The land belongs to me.
What year, what era are we talking about here?
We're talking about the 60s. We're talking about the 60s. And when I did the research on it, and, some of them are still prominent families here now, but one of them, Mr. Rosenfield, before he died, he tried to make amends for his by donating some land to some folks. But he had done so much to these families. They suffered so much. They lost so much. When you were just 3 days late with your rent, he would I remember riding through with Daddy, helping folks put their furniture on the back of his truck because it was raining and they were being evicted. He had no conscience then. He had no conscience then. And he was right downtown. And I looked at the fact that he was really sick before he passed on. And he brought my former pastor to the bedside and said, I want to do this for the African American families, for the black families. But so much had passed and gone. It was late. It was too late.
Wow. That's a very, very interesting thing, when you feel like someone is going to make amends, but then is it too late? Like, were their families not there? Was there nothing that they could do now? The families they were so tired of the South. Most of the families in the South, they migrated to up north. I had my grandfather, my great-grandfather, they were sharecroppers. And when their son became of age and they saw what was going on around them, they left at age 15, 16, early age, because they said they would not continue that momentum
of working and making them richer, and you never have any ownership.
Absolutely.
They never had any. My uncles died and worked their farms, and they're now wealthy folks around the Darlington County area and the Hartsville area, but they never owned the land that they worked.
Whew.
That's not in the 1800s. We talking about the 60s.
The 60s. I know just from my personal family story, I mean, my grandmother was a sharecropper, and the same story that you're telling, they just got tired of farming and, getting cheated. And at the end of the day, she said, listen, she told her mother at the time, I'm going to take my 2 kids and we're going to move to town. And town happens to be Florence,
Yes.
which is why we ended up here, So she took her kids and brought her mother, and they moved to Florence. Moved right over there from across the train station on East State Street, right? Can't tell that there were neighborhoods there anymore because McLeod has they brought all of that out. But that's how we ended up in Florence. And she realized that, it was education that was going to take us further, and all of us, continue to educate ourselves, and we're doing fine.
And that, to me, is one of the success stories. But then you look at the other side of that coin. The other side of it. What was the legacy of sharecropping? What was the legacy that they could share with their families, their sons and their daughters?
Right.
There was no legacy.
And you're right, because there should be some type of legacy, because if you're looking at now, I feel like our health issues, things that we're dealing with, the way that we should be eating. Why don't we have farms? We should have big farms, because we as a people, we know how to work the land.
We know how to work the land. And the other thing is, the other piece of this puzzle that we're still trying to figure out in doing our research, that even in the 70s, we were having these housekeepers and maids and yard persons working for the wealthy families in these areas of South Carolina. And they end up working themselves to death for $15 and $20 a week.
Right.
And no health benefits, no Social Security, and end up dying at young ages of heart attacks, strokes, all of these diseases that I push healthcare as the founder and director of the Minority Health Office.
Right.
I was able to do a lot with African American families that didn't have insurance. They worked as maids and they worked as housekeepers. They did the laundry, but they never had any access to health care.
Right.
Or retirement.
Talk about some of the health issues that we deal with in our communities, like high blood pressure, like strokes. Talk about that, and where do we stand as a community, not just then, but today?
Unfortunately, we are, as African Americans, black and brown as well, we still have the highest rate of death in every disease. If you walk through the dialysis unit, on each side of the aisle, it's us. It's us. And diabetes. They have practiced on us with these double amputees. They start with the toe, and they come back next month when the Medicare kick in for another surgery, and they're going to do the leg. Then they're going to do the thigh. They're going to continue experimenting on us. And if you have a history of diabetes in your family, then you need to be sure that you're taking care of yourself.
Why are we dying from these diseases today when we know that is a part of our community? Why are we still dying from this?
Tonya, It's very simple. We put our health on the back burner. We don't go to the doctors when we know there's something going on with our body. Why? Because we got to pay the rent. We got to pay the light bill, the water bill. We got to buy food for our children and our clothes for our children. So when we go to the physician office, they're going to charge us. And then they're going to give us medication that they done talk with the pharmacists about, and these pharmaceutical companies, and these astronomical prices. Insulin, $500 a bottle. Who can afford that?
So how are we going to deal with these issues? What is it that we can do?
Take ownership of our health. And I preach that every time I have an opportunity to talk about the Office of Minority Health.
But what does that mean? Because when you say take ownership of our health, like I hear that, we know that this is a problem with our people. Some of us, we can't afford to go to the doctor. So what type of ownership is there to be taken?
We've got to fight. There are now, because of money is coming through from the federal government, there are community health centers available as Care South, Black Health, and Black Rivers Health, and Hope Health, which has, and all of these I named have Genesis Health out of Darlington. They basically provide services for you on the holistic approach. And if you're not working and don't have an income, then they cannot turn you around because of the federal dollars that they're getting. But I still say that we have to take ownership, because they will, I've interviewed so many African American women that said they have went to ER and was dying in pain and just simply hurting so bad. And these are African American males, women, and children. But their pain is not considered to be the same pain as the Caucasians. So they don't administer medication to help us, because they're saying, and to be honest, I have been through it. I actually took the test, and I actually saw what everybody else was telling me doing these interviews and doing my casework. I was able to walk through that process. And they are searching to see whether there's any records on you coming in before and getting something for pain. So you hurt. You lay on a stretcher for hours, 14 and 15 hours.
Right.
Then they'll send you home. But I'm saying to us, every time that someone gives you a prognosis for your diagnosis, get a second and third opinion.
Absolutely.
Get a second and third opinion. So many people walking around here with no limbs because they did not get a second opinion. When they tell you that you got this, you've been diagnosed with this, you ask them, well, I want to get a second opinion.
Right.
And if you don't have an insurance, say, well, that's all right. I'll make sure that I apply for a medical fellowship downstairs on the first floor.
And people need to know that that is available to them.
That is available to them.
How do they find out?
First floor, administration offices everywhere.
And tell them what it is again?
And it is the medical fellowship. That's money that they get from federal government when you are not able to pay. Non-profit and for-profit. Right now, you're supposed to have a mammogram at age 45 every year.
Right.
And if you can't afford it, then there are the Susan Komen Foundation, and you have the DHEC that pays for the mammograms. So why are we still dying up? And the Caucasian women have more incidence of the breast cancer, but we're dying more than they are. Because we are not catching it in time.
Right.
stage 4, stage 3, and then it becoming aggressive. So, check yourself every month. If you feel something suspicious in your body, reach out and get help. One of the other issues that I've seen on the rise in the last 5 years is mental health.
Yes.
Mental health. We go to work, come home, and lay in bed because we can't deal with it. And it's such a stigma on mental health in the black and brown community that people don't want to even talk about it.
They, only this younger generation, which is something that I really love about them, they talk about mental health and they take time out and they realize the importance of it. But the older generations just did not take mental health seriously. Our community did not take it serious.
Exactly.
They're quicker to say, they're crazy. Mm-hmm. And just in such a light way, and even make a joke of it. And it's not funny. Where did that come from?
It comes from the stigma of being used in the Tuskegee experiment. Our women, organs used for research without our permission, and that when we go and we say that we have mental health issues, they put us in a dark room at the end of the corner of the psychiatric hospitals, and they experimented on us. So it does not come without merit, but we have to take ownership again and say, I have to trust. That's why we push for more physicians, more mental health counsels that look like us.
Right.
But yet, why is there still only like 5% of African Americans that are in medical school? Why?
I have no idea.
Why? Because of the fact, if you do the research, for a long time, we were not even accepted. We had Mahara, and that was founded by a Caucasian male.
Okay.
Who said that he saw what was going on. They was not accepting the applications. And now to this day, we have to fight. Fight the fight. Fight the good fight.
You're right.
And the National Medical Association was formed by African American doctors because they were not willing to accept us in the American.
Those are things that have been going on in our community, health, our mental health. But something I want to ask you about, the violence in our community.
Oh God.
Today, yesterday, where have we gone? What are some of the differences that you noticed from when you were growing up and to the violence level of where we're at now?
I can say this without a shadow of a doubt, that our neighborhoods, it was the porch neighborhoods that was removed from our communities. We had, if you ride through, all of the older houses had these huge porches.
Yes, ma'am.
And here you had the neighborhood moms that watched out for the community. They watched out and they disciplined us. And then when our parents got home, it was a discipline again. But they took that away. They started building houses without porches. So we could not watch out for one another's children.
Houses without porches.
Without porches. Think about it.
Wow.
Even now, they are building houses. They have no porches. You don't even know. Half the people who I've interviewed say, I don't even know who my next door neighbor is. But in the days when I was coming up, they would be on the porch swinging.
And in rocking chairs.
And in rocking chairs, watching out for one another's children. And now you have children raising children. And so they didn't know. They don't care. And if you say something to their children, there is a fight. I've seen it. I've been there. Baby, don't do that. Listen, if you want to say something, my child, you say it to me.
Wow.
And that child looks at it with a smile.
So taking away the front porch took away the village.
It took away the village. And I am a village mom. I am a village mom. I have children, but I have village children.
Okay.
And my tribe, I hold close. And we talk and we share. And it's not just local. I have village sons across the United States.
I tell you what, stop right there because we're going to take a break.
Okay.
All right. You are watching In the Flow. Stay tuned and we'll be back with more.
Have an issue with anger management? Stop. Think. Walk. Run. Laugh. Dance. Relax. Breathe. Change location. Listen to music. Talk to someone. Take charge of your mental and behavioral health. Get help.
Hello, I'm Reverend Terry Alexander, asking you to join me every morning at 7 o'clock a.m. with Prayer Time with Terry. God is always willing to give, but we are so slow to ask. We must be intentional in our asking of God. Again, join me every morning at 7 o'clock a.m. with Prayer Time with Terry. Start your day with prayer.
I am Minister Buquilla Ervin Canon, and you're watching In the Flow.
We're back. I'm sitting here with a community gem, Miss Buquilla Ervin Canon. She's just giving us a wealth of information on life from the 60s all the way up to now, and I know that you are learning a lot. Let's continue our conversation. You were talking about being a village mother and talking about your sons.
I am the mother of a black son and the grandmother of a black son. I have nephews and nieces. And so it's not just the male, it's the female. And what we try to do in our tribe is that we encourage, we help, we advise. And we have elders in our village that are in their 80s and 90s are saying to us, grab hold. Do not let them go. Whatever it takes, give them what they need. Call on the elders for the wisdom and then the young people for their strength. Be a safeguard to the community. But nowadays, you have the streets. The gangs are saying, come, I'll be your family. I'll give you what you need. I'll give you the money. You can buy your own sneakers. You can go and shop. You can wear the big necklaces and the jewelry. Work for me. And that's all they see. And then in our homes, when you are consistently using violence in your home against your spouse, male or female, then that passes down through the generations.
Right.
They see violence. Violence enact violence. And then you have the school district that do not care. They don't care about you.
You say the school district doesn't care?
They don't care about you. They just want you out on the street. And what they do is basically, they have, back in the day, we had counselors that looked like us, and they would be parents away from parents. When we were coming up, the school teachers were the parents away from parents. the cafeteria workers, the housekeeping departments at the schools would be, you better sit down before I call your parents.
Yes.
And when you come through the line and you were acting up, then Ms. Ruth Tyndall will say to you, straighten up. But now, all that is gone. We have none of that. And the sad part about it is that they are sitting back laughing at us because we're killing each other.
Well, can we get that back? Can we, and how can we?
I have shared this same story with Senator Maggie Wallace Glover in a conversation just last week. How can we get back the arena of reaching out, helping one another? Even right now with all this gun violence, and they are actually buying illegal weapons, and most of these gangs, they basically are young people that are crying out for attention. And she agreed with what I was saying about we need to get the concept of the village.
We do, and just think about some of the legislation. Talk about some of the legislation and some of the politics of what's going on. What are your thoughts there?
Well, that I will be very short with that, because when I start talking, people say, please, Ms. Buquilla, it can be all day with that one. But, Tonya, we have folks that are elected to serve, and they use that job as a way to further push us down as a people on every level, from local municipalities to state, law enforcement, and federal. You have federal judges that was appointed. I've never seen a president appoint so many judges than the last administration. The federal judges, the state judges, the municipal judges, and they are putting us in jail. They are putting, and then smiling about it.
I mean, you're right. I mean, we've got a couple Joes in some high positions. Okay, one in the highest. And then there's one in particular. And I'm trying to figure out who is really making decisions here.
Exactly.
Talk about the other Joe. Talk about what you feel about the filibuster. Where are we going with politics?
And politics right now, and I need to say this up front, we should have fought, because we knew the history of the past president. We knew his history, and we knew that the supporters were more of segregationists, insurrectionists, than anything, but he was allowed to go into the house. So here we are now. We're at a crossroad. We have judges, we have policemen, and I can say to you, all policemen are not bad.
No.
And when I say that Black Lives Matter, I'm saying that because for centuries it didn't matter. And here we are today, just last week, when Kim Porter was just sentenced to 2 years, or really 16 months, because of a young man, Dante Wright. And the same case happened 2 years prior to that, when there was a African-American policeman that mistook a victim as being the perpetrator. Right. And he apologized, but he has 12 and a half years. So you have two different justice systems in the United States of America. And that's what we see every day. we see every day. And then they put the killers in our own community back on the street. And then we ask why, and a Caucasian person told me, so y'all can continue killing each other.
There it is.
So you didn't see that in Reciprocal? They meet in closed rooms. They go to church on Sunday, but they are planning all during the week. So why would you let someone out that is a killer, that has actually, allegedly murdered somebody, and the bail is so low that they get out the same day? And I was just saying it in a casual Zoom, and she hit me on my text and say, because they want you to continue killing you, so they won't have to deal with you. They won't have to deal with you. And I'm saying, well, I knew that, but I need to hear it from you.
Right. You know, we know these issues. You're telling people from your experiences, from talking to people, from doing the research. What motivates you to find out all of this information? What motivates you to share it? And are you not fearful in sharing some of this information and in speaking the way that you speak?
I have been a victim. I have been basically driving here in Florence in the early 2000s, early 2000, and had basically almost been run off the road. I have been called the angry black woman, the Angela Davis mishap, all kinds of names. And when I was writing in the Community Times about Black Lives Matter and showing actual stats on these issues, then I was ostracized and said that, and that was just last year, and just totally ostracized and said all kind of ugly things. But I will fight.
Where does that fight come from?
I will fight because I know from doing the reading and doing the research that there were others that fought for me. I got it in my bones, and it is in my mind, it's in my spirit. Every day I read and I research and I cry out in pain for these mothers and these fathers that says, Minister Canon, we are tired of going to the grave. You got families that have lost 2 and 3 children due to gun violence.
Right.
Due to gun violence. We are killing ourselves, and you don't even know that's what the era of slavery. It was the ones that were living in the big houses and the plantation that sat back and started arguments among the slaves.
It happens all the time.
All the time.
It just happens in different ways today. It does. And I heard you say something really key. You was like, you read. So, you know, the importance of reading, the importance of education. I want you, did you go to an HBCU?
I did. Morris.
Which one?
Sumter.
Tell me again.
Morris College.
What was your experience like at Morris College?
It was the love between the fact that it was a HBCU and the faculty, the staff, and Dr. Lundsey Richardson cared about you and made sure that you were protected by the love, and you were given every opportunity and availability of obtaining a degree. And it was a wonderful experience. And right now, It stands over in Sumter, South Carolina on Main Street. And it is still one of the best colleges in the country. And as I have my sister and my brothers, they're all Claflinites. The same one that Les Eccles is. They're Claflinites. And we all gather and we share the same experience, that connectivity of being an HBCU.
When you attended Morris, how the emphasis on it being an HBCU, how important of a role did that play in you actually attending the school?
Because it was major. Because during that time, we were still fighting segregation.
So it was more out of, that's where you had to go?
It was, really, to be honest, if you wanted a good education and if you're comfortable in getting an education, yes. Yes. You had very few colleges that were accepting black and brown folks. And if you did, you need to be able to pay up front. And not because you didn't have the advantage of having, families that was able to write a check.
Okay. How important do you think it is for young people today, in today's time, for our children to go to HBCUs? Is that still important?
Yes.
Why?
Because there's still experience that you get at an HBCU campus that you don't get in other schools. And I know there are opportunities, at Clemson and University of South Carolina. And I always say, undergrad and then, go grad. But my thing is they get these football scholarships and these scholarships to play sports, and they be there a year and 2 years. And if they lose the scholarship, they got these astronomical financial fees. I mean, they kick you out of the dorms where the sports live, and you out there on your own trying to find money to finish your education.
Yes, it's expensive, but I gotta say this now, because I have children who are college students. Well, one's graduated already, but they went to PWI. One is at Claflin now, who was in an HBCU. I went to an HBCU. It's not less expensive necessarily to go to a HBCU.
It's not, but there are more opportunities for grants. There are opportunities for grants and minority grants. Now, I'm not going to say anything negative because I have a Clemson graduate. I have a Appalachian State graduate.
Right.
And so I say that it's up to the families, but don't make it about sports. Don't make it about sports altogether, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Because if you lose that, then you're just out there. And so, academically, push for the STEM, push for the fact that we've got to get comfortable in the science, technology, and math.
Absolutely.
So whatever we need to do to get there, yes, so let's do that.
Okay.
And not, saying anything negative because, I have family that serves as presidents, of HBCU, but they also say the experience that you get, the love and the understanding. And of course, we've had some issues with some HBCUs at Howard.
Right.
We've had incidents in Georgia as well. But the bottom line is that we have to make choices that's best for us, and I'll say that.
All right. Well, we're going to take a little break right now, and
Okay.
then we'll come back and talk to Miss Buquilla Ervin Canon, a gem, a wealth of knowledge about our history, about where we're from. We'll be right back. And we're back. Miss Buquilla, I have to ask you a question because you've done something that is so important to this community. Talk about PD Minority Health Incentive. What inspired you to do that and create that? And also I want you to let people know how they can become involved.
It was founded on, again, observation and research of people in the PD area not having access to health care. I had worked in one of the major hospitals before the PD Minority Health Office, and I saw a lot. When I was coming up, we were children, there were segregated waiting rooms. In the emergency room, when you come in, there was the colored and the white at all the major hospitals. So started looking into what in the black communities was causing so much death, and doing research with the manufacturing companies, the Wentworth, the Marlowe's, the Electric Motors, the Pecan, Young's Pecan, and they had a bean factory where you learn how to, where you shell beans and peas, and these is where our ancestors worked, and they were all in our community. Tonya, there was none over in other parts of Florence. They were in the African American community. The tower, radioactive tower, is right there in our community. So that inspired me because I saw how they were dying.
Right.
I saw how they would come in and they would get the Band-Aid approach and then they'll go back home and die. And I looked at, because back then it wasn't climate control or climate injustice, it was just the fact that they could come and build these factories and everything in our communities. And we were inhaling all of the waste from these factories. So I decided, along with 7 other people in the community area, to not just sit here and talk about it. At workshops and conferences, we were going across the state, country. What are we going to do about it in our own community? So that's where the PD Minority Health came forth. We had our first office was on Wally Street, right next door to Aiken Company, and from there we went to the major suite of on Dawgan Street, right across from the Florence County Library. And may I share with you that out of the 24 years that we provided health care, access to health care, for 6 different counties. And what I had so much self-experience when my daughter was diagnosed with aplastic anemia. And we had to leave here on a train that had to be fumigated and had to be put up with all various kinds of material, because if Yoki sneezed, then that could have been the end of her. Wow. So she was just 8 years old, and we went to Johns Hopkins University, which was the only major hospital during that time that would do bone marrow transplants, and ended up staying up there a year, and stayed at the Ronald McDonald House, and I saw so much.
District 1, we are one. We are resilient, we are family, friends, and we are a community. District 1 needs a leader that will remain focused on our best interests as a community. I'm running because I care too much not to, and to serve the people I call family. With change agents like you, we can change the direction of every community in District 1. It's time for every resident of Florence to live the good life. I'm Isaac Wilson, and I approve this message.
Hey, I'm Suzanne La Rochelle, and I am running to be your next South Carolina State Senator for District 31. And you're watching In the Flow.
Hello, I'm Reverend Terry Alexander, asking you to join me every morning at 7 o'clock a.m. with Prayer Time with Terry. God is always willing to give, but we are so slow to ask. We must be intentional in our asking of God. Again, join me every morning at 7 o'clock a.m. with Prayer Time with Terry. Start your day with prayer.
I understand and I hear your passion. I appreciate your commitment to everything that you continue to research and start, but in particular to the PT Minority Health Incentive. Is there an application process? How does someone get help?
They can still always call me. I moved to consulting now due to the fact that I'm unfortunately living, having an office downtown, then and leasing that, the lease was not renewable because they had other plans for downtown revitalization. But folks know that I am still available. I still do, right now I'm doing conferencing. I'm doing Zooms as well as being a part of the COVID-19 action team. I've been working with that and just excited about the opportunity to share knowledge through conferences and meetings, and I'm available without charge. I get excited each time I get to share some of the experiences of the Minority Health Office, and that we were given the prestigious award of research with Boston University because we started with them in a research study of Black women, and at the end of 20 years we went to Boston and they gave us this award for providing so much medical services to areas that did not have access to health care.
Wow.
When people were diagnosed and needed to go to MUSC, Chapel Hill, or even to Sloan Kettering, we were able to negotiate transportation, physicians, rooms for the families, because I had been through that. I had seen, that side of it. So we were able to be a partner for families, and I still have internships. We had students that would come in and would work during the summer, and now send me letters, text me, Facebook me. Miss Buquilla, do you remember when I worked in your office? Well, I'm now a physical therapist, or I'm now a nurse. Now, guess what, Miss Buquilla? I am a pharmacist.
Wow.
And that became because they got the experience of being in the office and working with clients and patients.
And you have to inspire them because you have so much passion. So to have a mentor is very important towards success anyway.
Yes.
I can just imagine some of the young people who have gone on to success because of that experience and because of those internships.
Exactly. And the thing about it is they leave with so much pride because we made them feel like they were so much a part of the success of our office.
That's wonderful.
We just didn't give them, a desk and a chair. We gave them important duties, and they came through like flying colors.
Awesome. You and I could talk about so many different things, and what I like about you is that we can jump from topic to topic, and often you can't talk to people where you can, you're having a conversation, but you're going from here to there to here to there. But I want to ask you about this Seat 31 that we have available right now in our area. What are some of your thoughts about that open position, from Hugh Leatherman? Talk to us about that.
My purpose for standing here today is to introduce a candidate a candidate that has been out here for decades working for the blue. She is not a little person in the party, but she is a bold Democrat. She has served and worked on many of campaigns. She is a woman of integrity. She is a woman that cares about the community. Listen, women, rise up. It is our time, and we are so happy tonight to be standing here for Suzanne La Rochelle. Can I hear you say yeah?
Let people know.
For
Because it's your opinion. In
It's my
politics,
opinion.
it's your opinion, and politics is our opinion.
it's
I'm
our
curious.
opinion. And I do think that for all those 40 years that the former senator who is now passed on never had any opposition. So it is traditionally a seat that's been held by Republicans. And I can say that now, for the first time in all those decades, we have someone that said that I want to represent District 31 because it is time to have fair representation. And even though I know he was the chairman of the Finance Committee and he brought in major dollars to the cities that he was, working with, but still we look at the candidates. Have we actually been in the community? Have we actually been doing things to make changes in our communities? Did we actually share what knowledge we have to make it a better day for everybody and not just for one population? District 31 is an interesting district, but I do believe that politics is local. All politics is local, Tonya. And what we need to look at is that even though whoever gets elected, they'll be coming in as a freshman. They need to understand that. But every person that is a citizen has the right to run.
Right.
And I think that my candidate, and when I say my candidate, the one that I introduced as a running mate to the opposition, has done great things in the community. Mental health. She's worked with Black Lives Matter. She's done NAACP. She's done so much for all the communities, women of League voters. She has organized community forums for other candidates. And she has basically been down in the dirt. She fought for the school district to have equal representation as far as our education programs for each student. She is a person that if you get to know her, she will share with you where she came from and how long she's been in the struggle for us.
Okay.
And I know that the opposition is a Black male, and he has a wonderful business here in Florence. And I'm sure he has good qualities too.
Absolutely.
So I'm just saying the candidate, and that both candidates has their own history, and that we need to register and we need to vote.
That's the important thing.
That's the important thing. And when we register, don't just sit home on voting day.
Right.
You know, we do registration drives all the time, and we are very proud of them. But then when we look at the numbers on election day, we're not voting.
People aren't. Well, the thing about it is people get to ask the candidates. They get to question the candidates. So they can't say, you know, I'm just voting because they're a Democrat or they're a Republican. You know, ask questions. Go to their events. Go to their... Contact them. Because if they're asking for your vote, I certainly hope that you're able to ask a question.
And you're able to, you know, actually sit one-on-one with them. And you know, talk to them, each candidate, and ask the questions, the hard questions. The hard questions. And always remember the sacrifices that gave you the right to vote.
Absolutely.
Please don't forget that John Lewis left this earth thinking that the Voters' Right Act, the Lewis Voters' Right Act, would be passed.
And we still haven't. Why?
They refused to pass.
Why?
And so when you vote for these people, know that you're voting for your future. They have everything in their hands. They're supposed to be representing you, but they go to Washington and they forget about you.
Yes.
And I look at when my father was just really fighting for a opportunity to have an African American on the Supreme Court, but I'm sure he's not resting easy in his grave because of the way that the African American votes. It's not about us. It's everything on the other side.
You're right. But you said something right before this. You said that politics is local. And it is. And let's talk about our local politics. Let's talk about our local mayor.
The first woman, the first African American to be elected to mayor. Now that in itself is history altogether.
Yes, ma'am.
Because of the fact that the first woman, and we are shattering the ceiling, but to know that in one of the 5 largest cities in South Carolina, we have an African American woman.
Is our mayor.
Is our mayor. And we should be surrounding her with support. Surrounding her with love and appreciation for that role that she has. We should be able to sit down and say, what can I do to get your goals pushed?
Well, you're saying we should. So I'm going to ask you a question. Do you feel that the citizens are not?
I think that there is so much division.
Within the local politics itself, within the council?
I think that if you watch all of the videos from every council meeting, all is not well. All is not well. When you have a Florence County seat that was drawn by Dr. R.N. Beck for an African American to be represented on the City Council, District 1. And because of mixed feelings and division, there is now a white male Republican in that seat.
And how did that happen?
Because you had 7 or 8 candidates running, and instead of us going into a room, sitting down and talking about who was the candidate, it was okay to have 1 or 2. But why are we going to come out 6 or 7, and then 6 or 7 candidates, and then when the primary is over and your candidate didn't win, then you're going to say, well, I'm not voting. I'm not going to the polls. I'm not supporting anybody. That was happened. Now, the others, they may fuss and fight in their meetings, but when they come out, they're on one accord. They're going to support that candidate. But we had 6, maybe 7 candidates running for the same district.
Wow.
And when the primary was over, my God, there were people that said, if that person runs, I'm not going to vote for him. And then what happened is that they started meeting, the opposition started meeting and said, we got a chance to take this seat. And they did. A seat that was drawn specifically because the people, I looked at the numbers and cried.
So there was too much politics in the politics.
In the politics, and they did not vote on that election day. But they made sure that the opposition people were there in large numbers. But being a predominantly black district, it should have never happened.
So what are we going to do, and what can we do to support our mayor, to support our council, and just support our overall community? What do you think we can do? Give me just 2 little short things, because we've talked so much.
I think that I'm pretty sure of what I'm going to say. Lift every voice. Listen. Your views may not be the same as mine, Tonya. But everybody does not look at everything the same way. Can we sit down and talk?
Yes.
Can you and I go to the table and talk? Let us try to come to the medium where your issues becomes mine and mine become yours. We're fighting for the same things. Please don't let this inner fighting cause us to lose any more seats locally, state, and federal. Let us please come to the table. There is an opportunity to reason together. You may not like me, but respect me.
And I think that is a good place to end.
Yes.
You know, you've been like I don't know how many times you've been on In the Flow so far, but I think you are at top on being the guest. But we definitely have to have you back again.
Thank you, Tonya.
I've enjoyed talking to you.
I just loved every moment. And you're such a good person to talk to. I guess that's the poet in you.
Well, I thank you for that compliment. I do. But I learn so much from you every time I get an opportunity to hear you speak. It is a joy. It is a joy.
Thank you.
You have been watching In the Flow. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. And please, listen to these words and make sure you lift your voice. Listen and come together.